At the decision desk at Fox News on election night, and you called Arizona early for President Biden, which was controversial. How did you make that call?
We already knew Trump's chances were very small and getting smaller based on what we had seen. So we were able to make the call early, beat the competition. We looked around the room, everybody says yay, and on we go. And by the time we found out how much everybody was freaking out and losing their minds over this call, we were already trying to call the next state. We had already moved on.
What were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None. I mean, I guess it's always possible that you could have, a truckload of ballots be found somewhere, I suppose. When we think about that margin, we think about, in modern history, you're talking about 1,000 votes, 1,500 votes at the way outside. Normally, you're talking about hundreds of votes, maybe 300 votes that are going to change. So the idea that through any normal process in any of these states, remember, he had to do it thrice, right? He needed 3 of these states to change. And in order to do that, I mean, you're at an infant. You're better off to play the Powerball.
That was former Fox News political editor Chris Stirewalt testifying in June before the January 6th House Select Committee. And by the way, we just learned that the January 6th committee will likely have their next committee hearing on September 28th per multiple sources. So we'll be following that. And Chris Stirewalt joins us now. He's out with an in-depth look at the news industry and where it's headed in a new book entitled Broken News: Why the Media Rage Machine Divides America and How to Fight Back. It's good to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being with us, Chris. I've got to ask you first. I mean, most of us had you come to our attention around this Arizona call. I mean, come on, buddy. It was kind of tight. You were worried for a couple of days, weren't you?
No, but absolutely
Really?
not, because we had the goods. We had a different system than our competitors did, and I won't bore you with it. You can have Kornacki come on and explain how exit polling versus the data that we had in our partnership with the Associated Press and the University of Chicago National Opinion Research Center, but I won't do all of that. I'll just say we had a really good poll and a really good mousetrap in Arizona, so we weren't worried about Arizona. Now, I was worried about the fact that the world was losing its daggone mind talking about Arizona, and the anger, the rage that you could feel splashing up against us from viewers who had been flattered and cosseted and told that their candidate would win no matter what the polls said. That's what worried me, not whether our call was right. I knew we had it.
I mean, it reminded me a bit, the reaction to the call for Arizona, where you had for a while Fox News viewers going to other networks. They were so outraged that you actually made the right call. But it reminded me a bit about what happened in 2012 when Fox News viewers and people that went to other conservative outlets heard time and again that Mitt Romney was going to beat Barack Obama. We remember that the huge headline in that Gallup poll that had Romney way ahead. And because they lived in this ecosystem, they were absolutely stunned when Romney lost handily.
Yeah, and in the book, one of the things I talk about is the distance traveled in audience experience from 2012 to 2020. And in 2012, Republicans were not happy when the Fox News decision desk called Ohio for Barack Obama. The Fox News viewership did not say, "Oh, wonderful news. We're so pleased about this." No, of course they were upset. And of course they changed the channel. Of course they turned off the TV. That's fine. Then they come back, right? You just keep telling the truth. You keep doing the right stuff. And the viewers will come back to you if you have a good product. What happened after 2020 was, and obviously the personnel, we had a different president, we had a different space. But what happened after that was that voters over the previous decade or so had gotten so used to being told what they wanted to hear. Like right now, it's crucially important that Democrats and Republicans get an honest picture of what's going on in these midterm elections. And it's crucially important that people understand how competitive races are, how competitive what's going on, so that when we get to the end, we don't have this shock experience.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into another network and talk too much about another network. I do want to ask you, though, about Roger Ailes, because Roger was one of the defining media figures of our time. Of course, painted as the worst of the worst, even before the stories came up about the sexual harassment. But Roger, during Glenn Beck's time on the network, started getting nervous, started calling people up, called me up, and said, hey, do you think Glenn is going outside of the boundaries? Are we getting too reckless? This was about the same time Gabby Giffords got shot. He was calling Barack Obama a racist who hated all white people. And a lot of people that knew Roger and had known Roger for a long time were getting those calls. And, of course, I don't know all the details of why Glenn Beck left, but I do know that Glenn Beck did not fit in Roger Ailes' ecosystem, because despite what you thought of his ideology and his programming, there were limits to what he would put up with. Has that changed?
Roger's line at the time, as I recall, was the problem with predicting the end of the world every day is that sooner or later you have to deliver. And the apocalyptic kind of, I hear from both sides that America is failing, doomed, hanging by a thread, everything is over, the dark night of the soul. Well, if you believe that, that's whatever. But if you're doing that to sell pillows, or you're doing it to chase clicks, if you're doing it to do that, you are not living up to the duty that you have to the Republic. If you're a journalist, you're not living up to the duty you have to the Constitution. And if you're a citizen and you're not consuming healthful, wholesome news and reliable information, you're not doing a good enough job either.
All right. So, Chris, in your new book, you write, quote, there's so much anger in our culture today, and you can't hate something you aren't afraid of. We are an angry people because we are a frightened people. It wouldn't be so odd if it weren't for the fact that things are so much better here and now than they've been for most of human existence. Freer, richer, safer, cleaner, and easier. There are a lot of reasons for this mismatch, but part is surely a result of media overconsumption. Panicky pulp produced to shovel at you in order to hold an audience in a fragmented marketplace. All day, every day, you are offered an unlimited array of serious worries about which you can do next to nothing. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about social media and different media outlets, and some which aren't as credible as others. Having said that, is the onus on the viewer or on these new news organizations or social media machines?
Well, I love that you guys do the local papers. I love that you do that, because the stuff that we should care, where we should place most of our energy and our concern, is on the things around us that we can fix, that we can do something about. The collapse of the local news industry, 2005 and beyond, was deeper, broader, and more devastating than any of us knew at the time. My career tracks along with this stuff. I started right at the end, where newspapers were the dominant part of the ecosystem, and in their place came in mostly national, low-value news that came in that was not about giving people information about how to live their lives, but connecting with them on an emotional basis. And what good, high-quality news does is give you tools in your life to be a better citizen, to be a better parent, to be a better neighbor, to be a better you. And you can do something about what's going on in the next school board election. You can do something about how your neighborhood is. But if somebody just comes on and says the country is going to die because of strangers in a different part of the country that you've never met or doing something else, that leads to despair. And ultimately, that leads to one of the biggest problems is people just tune out. They just check out. Pew tells us now 15% of all Americans did not consume any news from any source at all in the previous week. That is a really bad sign, because to be good citizens, you need to be informed citizens.
There's also the decline of local news and local investigative reporting, which is another segment. We'll have to have you back. The new book is entitled Broken News: Why the Media Rage Machine Divides America and How to Fight Back. Former Fox News political editor Chris Stirewalt, thank you very much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the book.